Thank you guys so much for joining us for our Axiom launch for 2019. We're very, very excited about our year this year. Today, we're going to talk to you guys about what you can expect starting tomorrow and some things that we're still waiting on from TEA that are going to get us to the position that we want to be in to give you guys a good solid projection for this year. So for those of you who don't recognize my voice, my name's Donnie Cash. I'm on the data solutions team here at Region 10, and I'm going to let my co-presenters introduce themselves.
All right, I guess I'll go. I'm Stacy Barker. I'm also at Region 10. I work in the teaching and learning department at Region 10, and I help support Axiom mostly instructionally.
All right, and can y'all hear me?
Yes.
This is Ed Cunningham with Ed Euphoria. I am the Aware Product Manager and kind of the point person for Axiom discussions with Region 10.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Just to give you guys a little bit of understanding of why we're so crazy today, the power's out at Region 10, so we are all actually in different locations. And so it's a little unusual to not be able to see the people that you're co-presenting with. So if we seem a little disjointed and maybe not as smooth as we might otherwise be, please forgive us. We are working on this remotely, and it is a little bit of an unusual thing. So thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. And as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys can expect in 2019 and beyond. And we're really excited. So thanks. So first thing is the link to the presentation is on your screen. I am going to stop talking, I promise, here in just a second to let you put that in. Just so you guys know, tinyurl does not use capital letters. So those little things that you see down there are actually lowercase l. So if you guys want a copy of this presentation to view, if you'll just go to tinyurl.com/y4lvxwls. I'm going to give you guys just a second to do that. And I'll take another drink of my coffee.
The link has also just been posted in the chat. So if you don't want to type all that in, if you go into the chat, you can click on it there.
My bad. I'm trying to do two things at once, and clearly I'm incapable. Wait time is not my forte, y'all. So I will just tell you, I'm just sitting here tapping my toes, hoping you guys are getting that so that I can move on. All right. Throw a hold up in the chat if you need me to give you just another minute. Oh, tinyurls are blocked by the, yeah, Stacy will put it in the chat for those of you who can't get to tinyurl. Stacy will put it in the chat for you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Whoops. I think. Thank you, Stacy. All right, so agenda for the session this morning is we're going to go over all things Axiom. So what's new for 2019, some first steps before you release this information to anyone as far as your projections go. Those of you who deal with districts and high schools know you do not have all of your data today to be able to do your projection. So we'll talk about what to do when you get that, when we can expect that, all of that stuff. And then we're going to talk about what's coming in 2019. So some feature improvements that we're working on. One of the things that's new for 2019 is our user site that Stacy's worked really hard on, and she's going to go over that with you guys today, which I think is going to be very beneficial to those of you who need to turn around and do training for other people in your districts or on your campuses. We'll talk to you about all of the training that we have slated for you guys month by month throughout 2019, 2020. And then we will just reinforce those important dates about data releases from TEA and things that you guys can expect this year, okay? So that is pretty much what you guys would be able to expect this year. So we're going to start out by talking a little bit about what's new. Also, I think I mentioned this earlier, but we're all kind of in different places. So there might be a time where I throw it over to Ed and he's not quite expecting me to do that. So just be patient with us because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to tell you about what they're super excited about in relation to Axiom this year. So what's new as of June 11th? That will be tomorrow. We should be ready to start the information to give you a full projection for your elementary and middle school campuses, meaning your domains, each domain projection and an overall. And I said start because there's some more on this to come. When we get into the first steps, I'm going to be very specific and explicit about that with you guys. This year, you're supposed to be able to get projections for your districts and high schools based on the STAR component tomorrow. You'll be able to start. But then once your CCMR and grad rate data is all available, I think grad rate's already ready, but the final CCMR data, you'll be able to do your full projections for your districts and high schools. Something that's new for 2019 is we're going to be able to give you guys alternative campus projections, including those with no graduates. I know that was a challenge last year, and so we have made some improvements there. So that's a new thing for this year. Also, the Custom Star Summary Report, which I'm going to show you guys. We previewed a version of this at TAC a few years ago, and now with this need to kind of dig into each individual subject, individual grade levels, individual student groups, this has come back to be something that we thought was important. So we brought an improved version of this back. And then I think what you guys will notice first is our updated user interface, which we're really, really excited about. So I'm going to pause for just a second. I know that Stacy's monitoring the chat, but I'm going to give her a chance to. So yeah, I'm going to answer this question live. So Shannon said we got our results files today, but we still have to wait until tomorrow to use Axiom for grades 3 through 8. Shannon, that is correct. We are going to be rolling Axiom out tomorrow. And so, oh my goodness, sorry, y'all. I'm clicking on.
While
go ahead.
you do that, let me address that real fast, Shannon. We based our release schedule for June 11th based on the TEA testing calendar, but we anticipated that results for that big file would probably be in today. And so our plan today is, because people have already started importing those files, of course, we're doing some spot checking on our numbers. And so we're saying out loud that it's releasing for use tomorrow, but based on how well our spot checking of numbers goes today, you might want to check back later this afternoon. We have everything completed, but you can't, until all of the data are in, we can't do a full quality assurance for the product until we actually have a chance to look at it ourselves.
Okay, Shannon, did that answer your question? And Stacy, yes, this webinar will be recorded for people to view will be recorded for people to view later. Ed, we have a question, and I don't know that there is an announcement. So we have a question. When will we receive the announcement that it's up and running?
We will send that announcement out as soon as it is up and running. So if it releases at 1:05 this afternoon, then we'll get an announcement out this afternoon to everybody who that it's up and running.
Perfect. Thanks. All right. So Ed or Stacy, do you guys have anything to add on the what's new before I move on and show them, even though I gave you a preview because I can't control my clicking apparently, before I show them the updated user interface?
Nothing. No.
All right. I heard you both. See, look how good I am at being able to hear both of you at the same time. Okay, so I'm very excited. Yes, Shannon, you'll know if the look changes. So let's just dive right into the updated user interface for 2019. So one of the things that I tell everybody when I do a demo for Axiom is our goal is to make as a good of a match as possible between Axiom and the TEA reports. One of the things we do not want you having to do is go look at the TEA reports, then look at Axiom and try to make sense between the two. But you guys will notice last year TEA didn't give you any visuals, but now they have. And so when you log into Axiom for 2019, once it rolls over, what you should expect to see is something that is like the screen that is up right now. So this is a district landing page. You know that because right down here, it just says select a campus. But I do want to point out a couple of features that you guys should expect to see this year that wasn't there last year. So number one, this custom star summary report in the bottom under graphs and reports in the center of your screen. So the custom star summary report, more on that to come. And then here in just a little while, we're going to talk a little bit about these settings about configuring campuses. So when you log in to your district or to an individual campus, you should see 4 circles up here. The color coding should match TEA's color coding so that you can get used to what color a B is, what color an A is, what color a C is, and you can kind of make some connections across those. So each one of these, again, will be clickable, meaning it's dynamic. Once you click on that, it's going to drive you in to that particular data table or to the particular report that produced those results. Okay, so I'm going to pause and breathe for just a second and see if anybody has questions about the updated user interface, or if Stacy or Ed want to jump in and add anything that I might have forgotten. I see nothing in the chat, and I hear nothing from my friends, so we are going to move on. So once you go in and say you clicked on the student achievement, you're going to drill into that data table, but first we're going to talk about the custom star summary report. If you were with us at TAC a few years ago, you probably remember this, and it's just a report that allows you to click and unclick some boxes up here to be able to drill into either by district or by campus the specific tests. Now, some of you will say, well, we could already do that in our Domain 1 report. We could use the filters and select the test. That is true. And one of the things that we're going to talk about in some upcoming features later on this summer, possibly in the fall, we're going to be updating those filters. We're going to be adding more filter options. But in the meantime, if you need some more filtering options, this custom star summary report is going to be able to meet your needs there. So I'm going to go back to this screen. You would find that underneath the graphs and reports. It's that section, second option down there, custom star summary report. When you click on it, you'll get something like this. Okay. All right. But if you did click on the Domain 1 student achievement, if you were at a district or a high school, what you would see would be something that looks like this. So you're going to get your Domain 1 score. Then below that, you're going to get the components that were used in order to calculate that score. And then there will be a data table for you at the top. For those that have data tables that built it, there will be a little clickable area that says View Detailed Data in the bottom left. You can see that on my star box there. So you would be able to drill into the Domain 1 score or the star component there. So updated user interface for Domain 1. Questions about that before we move on? I'm just going to kind of go through these really quickly because it really is just ooh, ah, but I would like some oohs and ahs in the chat. That would some feedback. That'd be nice.
Ooh.
Oh, thank you, Stacy. Thanks. Appreciate it. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it. We you know, I have very low self-esteem. I just need a lot of feedback. Thank you. I appreciate everyone for participating. All right, sorry. I'm a mess today. Okay, so Domain 2, which is the school progress, you're going to get an overall score. You'll also get your scores for the 2 individual components so that you would be able to, again, click on the View Detailed Data to drill into the data table for your academic growth. Same thing for your relative performance. So your 2A and your 2B, you're going to get your overall, then each of those scores individually. So a question was asked in the chat, are you still going to be able to click on the component score to be able to click in? The answer is yes, and it should be assessment numbers. So there's a couple of different ways to get to each of these things. So there's, once it's live, you'll be able to see all of the different ways that you'll be able to click. Bianca, I think that was your question. So you're going to be able to click several things up here to get there, okay? So there hasn't been a ton of change in the way that we are displaying the 2A academic growth at the top. So you guys know last year we had your zeros, your halves, and your 1-pointers, and you could click on each of those assessments and be able to see what students or what assessments were in those particular numbers. But one of the changes we have made is actually to the 2B. And so, oh, there we go. So per request, we've had people ask, can these numbers inside this matrix be clickable? And the answer is yes. These will be clickable. So you'll be able to click on that 499, and then you won't have to scroll back up to the top to that, to the listing up at the top. Another question that has been asked, and it is actually up here on the top, but can we make all of the no pointers be aggregated so that you can click on all of them? And the answer is we are working on that, but yes, you will be able to. So fantastic. We're getting some yays about our R2B data table. So I'm going to pause real quick, take a little drink of coffee, breathe, let you guys process, and then throw any questions in the chat that you have, or let Stacy or Ed jump in if they have anything to add.
I just want to say, from an instructional standpoint, some of you remember some of the webinars that we did in the past about using this particular 2A chart and really digging into these groups and thinking about interventions for these groups. So this is really exciting for me that this is now clickable so that we can dig into those specific groups and talk about instruction. And we'll talk more about that in the training, but I'm just super excited about it.
Yeah, and I'll add, just to kind of distinguish between some of the words that Donnie's been using about what's going to be available as soon as this releases, like now, versus continuous improvement. All of these numbers will be clickable as soon as this releases. And any extra filters that are possibly missing, like you may see some new filters when it releases, but anything that's missing, the plan is to continuously add more filters and more clickable numbers. We've actually carved out this entire week where we're just going to be kind of vigilantly looking as people make sure their file imported and get everything taken care of. And so as you're playing with your numbers and clicking on things, you may see improvements even within this week, but definitely over the course of the summer, just extra bells and whistles to make the filters a lot more usable.
Thank you, guys. All right, I want to point one additional thing out on this page. It's going to actually be one of the things I'll talk to you about specifically in the first steps or next steps section. But down here at the bottom, Axiom will pull in your economically disadvantaged percentage from your roster data. For the majority of you last year, that worked perfectly. We did have a handful of districts who, for various and sundry reasons, sometimes there were SIS issues, sometimes there were a lot of issues that caused us not to pull in the correct economically disadvantaged percentage. We will fix that for you. So if you guys get in starting tomorrow or whenever it releases, I'm going to keep saying tomorrow, even though you know that actually may be today. If you go into a campus and see that the economically disadvantaged percentage is wrong, if you will let us know, we will fix it. So I know last year, some of you had maybe an issue on a campus and you were like, it's not that big of a deal, we're good to go. But that's going to be one of the first things you're going to want to check before releasing those results to your superintendent or to other stakeholders in your district, is that. But again, more on that to come. I've got specific information and written in words, not just you hearing me talk. Okay. All right. Another improvement that we have this year that we are so excited about is the
Donnie, before you get into domain 3, we have a question from the chat about where we're getting the EcoDis number. So if either you or Ed want to touch on that.
Ed can probably speak a little bit better to this. So I would just say from your roster data, but I'll let him talk, and he's going to use technical terms that I wouldn't use probably.
Well, I think you might have set the bar too high on the technical. We use your roster information, and we also use the data file itself, because the data file has EcoDis information coded on it, but also we import the information from your information system. So the information comes from the data file, but we do some like background comparison checks also for the places where it was wrong last year were very specific campus-based issues, and we actually used some of y'all's tickets from last year to find out why did it work in all of these other campuses but not in these specific ones. And so it was a slight tweaking to our logistics for that. And so that kind of speaks to our process for continuous improvement on these calculations. But yeah, the short answer is we get almost the bulk of our information from your data files. And then when it comes to things like continuously enrolled and non-continuously enrolled students and stuff, we have to use your rosters too. So we kind of use a combination.
Yep, thank you. Hey, Patty, we're going to get real specific with your CCMR and grad rate data here in just a second. But the short answer is we get that from you. So you don't have all of it yet. You have your grad rate, but you don't, you have your grad rate, but not your final CCMR list. So we're going to talk really specifically about that in just a second, okay? Yep. Okay, yeah, thanks, Shannon. Yes, it's a combination of sources, but we're gonna make sure it's right for you. That's what we just wanna communicate that that's our goal.
And we are producing a short FAQ document to go with, I know I'm probably getting ahead because y'all are going to talk about your resource page,
That's
but
okay.
we have a short FAQ document for questions like this if you want like more specifics about where some of this information is coming from.
Hey, Stacy, can you look at the question from Rosalie and maybe communicate with her and get some additional information? Thank you. All right, so one of the most often complained about charts from TEA last year was the domain 3 chart. It was very confusing. People really could not tell the difference between their own scores and the target, and part of it was just how it was represented. So one of the things that we are going to update for you that will be available as soon as this releases is an updated domain 3 list for you. So what you will be able to do, first of all, is see the target. Then you will be able to see your score, and we're going to visually just demonstrate for you yeses and nos by color coding according to the TEA color codes. So greens are going to be yeses, you hit the target. Reds are going to be nos, that you didn't hit the target. Then we'll tell you how many you met, how many were eligible, what your percentage was, same thing that we did last year. But it's going to be a much cleaner look from having 2 separate pages that you have to scroll up and down on. And I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think you guys will be too, so that you guys can be able to see just on one screen whether you got yeses or nos. One of the questions that gets asked a lot, and so I'm just going to address it right here. You guys know in Axiom, anywhere there's a percentage, it's not linked to a student list. It really is only the assessments that are linked to a student list. So I get this all the time. Are there student lists in domain 3? And the short answer is no, there's not. But if you wanted to know about the academic achievement of any students in these groups, you would actually get that from your domain 1, and that is a clickable list. Same thing with your growth status, which is, that would be from your domain 2. Your grad rate, all of that other stuff come from external sources. But in case you guys need any of that information, you're going to find that in your domain 1 or your domain 2 reports. Okay. All right. I don't think we have any questions right now in the, oh, thank you, Vicki. We're glad that you're happy about that. Vicki likes the domain 3. All right. So now we're going to talk about first steps. So I got asked this question a lot last year. And so let me just say this, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to use a really good teaching strategy. I'm going to say it loud, and I'm going to say it slow. Ha, 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 on my side. Okay, just kidding. So I got asked this a lot last year. So here's what I want you guys to take away from this. Before you share your results with anyone, so before you share them with anybody, thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. So I got a laugh, one laugh. First thing you need to do is make sure your latest data files are uploaded. Okay. So Ed will talk about in a second what data file or what information you would be specifically looking for. So you want to make sure your data files are uploaded. You need to input any manual data that is missing. So CCMR and grad rate. More on this here in just a second. Then under the Configure Campus button, under the Configure Campus button on the settings, if you'll go back to slide 6, you'll see what that landing page looks like. So it'll be on the far right, down at the bottom. You're going to hit Configure Campuses. And what you want to make sure is that each of your campus types were correctly detected. These can be adjusted with a down arrow. So your district should say district. Your elementaries should say elementary. So you just want to make sure the correct campus type is chosen for each campus. It should auto detect. We haven't had a ton of problems with the auto detection not working, but we have had people going in there and messing around and changing them. That's actually going to change the methodology used to calculate your results, which then could give you an error. So you want to make sure that that is correct. Then you want to go check your economically disadvantaged number. See slide 10. I showed it to you in slide 10 and said I was going to get more into that here. If you see errors, please email me and support@eduphoria.net. We will go in and we will fix it. Once all of those 3 steps, and I guess technically it's 4 because I guess input manual data was a separate one. So 4 steps have happened, then all you have to do is sit back and let the magic happen. That's it. That's all you have to do. Here's the challenge. Stacy's going to talk more about this in a second. You do not have all of your manual data today. Not really. Everything else you should be ready to go in and look at. So let me give you some scenarios in which I wouldn't release this information to my superintendent. I've gone in and I've looked at my elementaries and middle schools, and I've got 4 that their economically disadvantaged percentage is wrong. Would I go ahead and use that projection? The answer is no. I would email Donnie, I would email support, let us fix it. And then you could go in and you may have to recalculate. I'm not entirely sure. We'll give you specific information on that. But once you get that fixed, then you're ready to share that result with your superintendent, okay? What if you go in tomorrow? I'm using my air quotes that you can't see because it's actually possibly today. What if you go in and all of your economically disadvantaged percentages are spot on? Could I go ahead and then talk to my superintendent about my projections? For elementaries and middles that have no CCMR data, then yes, you're probably fine to go ahead and talk about those. When can we talk about the others? I'm going to let Stacy address this here in just a second. But now that I've stopped for just a second and I've given you kind of the 4 steps that you need to go through to make sure you're ready to trust those results, are there any questions before we move on? All right. I see nothing. Absolutely, I'd go for it because I did
talk a little bit about the data files. Yeah. Districts get, you're all district, or many of your district testing coordinators, so you know this, districts get a number of update files over time. And the way Aware works is if you load in, let's talk about the file you just got today, the big 3 through 8 file with the bulk of your 3 through 8 results, right? So let's say you load that file in and then you get an update file. The way Aware works is the update file will replace a record for every student that exists in both files, right? And it creates new ones for the students who are in the update file that are not in the previous file. So the update file now becomes the file. So it's very important that as ETS sends you update files that you load those in. And then if you have to recalculate Axiom, you do so. It may not change anything. The update might just be some minor update, might be 1 extra student that was missing or something like that, or it might be a big update. An example of a big update would be you got a file today and it was missing 1,000 students for some reason. You work it out with ETS, figure out what those students are, and then you upload the new file. Now you have 1,000 new students. That's a big deal. Another type of update, the original 5 and 8 math and reading file did not include EL progress information. That's because that file was released prior to TELPAS results being released. So everybody should have received by now an updated 5 through 8 file. Might be identical to the first one, except now it has EL progress information. If that file was never loaded in to overwrite the previous file, then you're actually missing EL progress information for all of your 5 and 8 math and reading results. So you want to make sure that you always load in the final file or the most recent updated file. Sometimes you get an update file that has like 2 records in it, okay? It's still good to load that in because it actually updates the 2 records that were in Aware from your previous file, okay? So anything related to STAR data can only be as good as the most recently updated files that have been loaded in. And so that's something that I think it's important. It's always difficult to kind of keep up with some of the naming conventions and things like that. And so if you have a way of looking at your files and managing your files that works for you, just making sure that you always have the most recent one is important.
Thank you, Ed. Couple of things on that. If you have trouble with your files. So one of the things in Aware, when you go in to upload your files, you're going to get a little icon that lets you know if you were successful. If you were not successful, it's going to give you a little red X. I think is what it gives you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed. And then you're going to want to fix that. So that's another really important thing. I should have said successfully upload your data files. In a really large district, if you have a couple of students that have a few errors, a lot of our really large districts are not going to bother with that. Is what I'm telling you. So they're just going to leave those alone. Some people want to correct every mistake. That's really sort of up to how you guys normally do this. So just as an FYI, just make sure they were successful, and once they're successful, you're going to be good to go. All right. Hey, Stacy. Well, let me address this real quick. And then Stacy, here's the question. So I was going to have you speak to it just a little bit.
All right.
How are substitute assessments figured into the projections for EOC? So in general, here's what I want to tell you guys. Axiom is designed to utilize all of the accountability rules for that year to give you a projection. So that's in general the statement that I would make to you, which is if kid A is included per the accountability, they're in your accountability subset, they would be figured into Axiom. If kid B was not in your accountability subset, they're not going to be in your projection in Axiom. And there are some people who have a lot of questions about this because you might get a student list that has kids who are not in your accountability subset. They weren't used for your projection, but you might still be able to see them in a student list in Axiom. So just a little bit about that, but talk to them about substitute assessments.
Well, the one thing about substitute assessments is I'm not 100% sure because I haven't seen them, how they are in the data files, but they should somehow be in the data files. And if they are, then they should be included at the meets level in accountability. They would not be included in any growth calculations because they do not at this time get a growth calculation. But as long as they are in the data file, which my assumption is that they are, then they would be included at meets for that requisite subject.
Yes, we do pull that in and we put it in the meet spot. They come in as not scored. And so if you're looking for them in a where, you have to do some fancy stuff in the edit menu in order to view them. But for Axiom, we pull those in and count them as meets. Correct.
Thanks, Ed.
And it's important that you guys understand that if a kid's using a substitute assessment, they're not going to show up necessarily in your star student list in Axiom. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that the student list is generated from your data file. So just, so you know that.
More specifically, it's generated from your students who have a score code of S for those assessments. And since students who have substitute assessment do not have a score code of S, they don't show up in the list of student results. But yes, they are accurately included in the numbers for the projection.
All right.
These are all really great for the FAQ page. So
I know I hope somebody is capturing these somewhere so we can use them later. Just kidding. I got it.
Awesome. So I also wanted to share with you some information about grad rates and CCMR, because that's a part of your first steps, right? Manually entering the grad rates or CCMR. And I'll talk a little bit more about if you don't want to manually enter later. But if you are going to manually enter your grad rates and CCMR, and even if you're going to ask Region 10, you're going to have to send them your data. So how do you get that data, the grad rates and CCMR? Many of you know this, but for some of you, you're not as used to going and pulling these reports from Teal. So CCMR and grad rates live in what's now Teal, used to be T's, right? So for grad rates are under the research tab and CCMR lists are under the accountability tab. And I've listed the steps in here, but I just want to show you. So hopefully you can still see my screen.
You're good.
Beautiful. Awesome. So when I log into Teal, I don't have any data because I'm not a district, but I can at least see where you go and what the links look like. So when I go into my accountability application, this is the first thing that pops up and it has welcome, and some of the newer reports are going to show up on this welcome page, but just to make sure that you're going to the right report, under the research and analysis tab is where you will find your graduate and dropout information. And the annual dropout information and the 4-year longitudinal information, 5-year longitudinal and 6-year have all been posted to Teal as of last week. So you can already click in and get your 4-year grad rates, which would be useful for Domain 1 and Domain 3, because remember the 4-year grade federal is used for Domain 3. So that's going to be in this 4-year file. Your 5-year and 6-year, whichever one is higher out of those three, is used for Domain 1. And then the annual dropout information is used for AEAs that don't have a grad rate. Or for high schools that don't have a grad rate. So when you click on, for instance, the 4-year rate, you will see class of 2018 longitudinal summary report. That's where you want to get those data points The student listing is here too, but that's less useful for Axiom. You really want the summary numbers. That's what you'll be putting in. And then you can either pull it as PDF or Excel. I prefer Excel. And I know that we are working on in Axiom some importers to, in the future, be able to import those files from that Excel file.
Let me jump in really quick,
Yep,
Stacy.
jump.
Stacy is going to talk about this here in just a second, but just like last year, we will offer to manually input this data for you. If you're going to go that route, we require that you provide the Excel file. Please do not download the PDF file. Please provide the Excel file for us, but we do not need a student listing on your grad rate, okay? So we just need the summary, we need the Excel file, and more on that to come. We have step-by-step directions and more definitive dates that you'll be able to do this in just a minute.
Awesome. Then, so once you pull, you know, your 4-year, your 5-year, your 6-year, or your annual dropout, once you pull all of that, then you're going to want to go back over here to this accountability tab. And that is where you're going to find the student listing. Now, right now, the 2019 CCMR student listing is not available. You have the preview listing, but that's not going to give you the ones and halves already calculated for you. So you'll get the official ones and halves with that 2019 College, Career, and Military Ready student listing. You can see it looks like this one. This is last year's 2018 CCMR student listing. Their plan is to release that in mid-June. Now we're already at June 10th, so that could be sometime this week or sometime next week. So keep an eye out for that notification from TEA so that you can come in here and pull your 2019 student listing. I'm going to pull up last year's just to show you what that page looks like, because again, you're going to want the Excel for this for sure, because you're going to have to add up ones and halves. You're going to have to split it out by your subgroups for domain 3. But that Excel file will show you which ones are graduates and which ones are not. And here in a second, I'll show you where you can find the manual entry videos that will walk you through that process of how to do those calculations. Any questions about getting that data?
So Patty, this is what I was talking to you about earlier. We get that from you. So if you would like for us to put your grad rates and CCMR in for you, we do that, by the way, at no cost. So it's just part of your Axiom subscription. We'll do it for you, but we can't do it until you get your final CCMR list. So even though this hasn't been asked, let me just tell you, we won't even start putting these in until the CCMR lists are ready. Just so you guys know, if you went in and uploaded your grad rates right now, we wouldn't even start until the CCMR lists are ready. So just as an FYI. I don't see any questions in the chat, Stacy.
Awesome. So then I'll push it back to you guys about what's coming in the future.
All right. So Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the timeline for what's coming? We don't have specific dates, but do you kind of want to talk about our process just a little bit and some of the things that they can expect?
Yes. So we've been working with Axiom now for a couple of years, and there's a number of feature enhancements, but also new features that we've talked about that would make this more useful, especially throughout the year. And so the first bullet there is kind of we can build it throughout this summer. There's already going to be some new filtering and like drill down clicks that you're going to be able to do when you first see it this week, but also over the next, let's say several weeks, you'll be able to, you might notice extra filters that make your ability to get to a student list specific to your curiosity or your data mining, and you say, well, what about this list or what about that list? Those are going to be added throughout the summer. The file importer is something that we really wanted to get to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and say don't wait on a file importer, but because you're going to, as soon as you have your CCMR data, you're going to want to manually enter that. But we need to get you guys a data file importer for that. It's a standard Excel spreadsheet. We know what it looks like, and so we're going to build a file importer that probably won't help you this year, but you'll be able to at least see it. And anyway, what we really want to build for you guys for Axiom, because right now we're talking about the thing that's on everybody's mind. You know, you just got your files, you're ready to put them in there and see what some accountability numbers look like. But once you have your accountability numbers and then TEA releases preliminary and eventually official accountability numbers, Axiom doesn't end. And so we're going to build a tool for Axiom to use throughout the probably first semester especially, and then kind of, you know, Donnie and Stacy will work with folks to see, you know, how it can be used beyond that. But it's going to allow you to use your local assessment data in an accountability Axiom looking tool, so that you can kind of, you know, you can add in, maybe you give a big district-wide series of assessments for all the grade levels for all the subjects. You can throw those in there. You can see some numbers, see what they might look like. Okay, so I guess we can call it a sandbox tool or a playground tool or something like that, but something that you can use your local aware data in Axiom. And so that's something to look forward to during the school year coming up. And finally, because Axiom, one of the strongest uses of Axiom is getting to the stories behind the numbers. Who are the students that made up this number versus that number? Who gave us a half point versus a full point for domain 2? Or there's an additional tool that we're going to build that's going to actually focus on the distinction designations, where we're going to look at the distinctions that you earned and give you an opportunity to look at to type in the information for your indicators. And you're going to actually be able to see, well, how many students away was I from quartile 1 for this indicator for math or this indicator for reading, and then maybe find who those students could have been that might have helped earn certain distinctions. And so we're working on designing this tool over the summer also, because distinction designations won't be released until the end of the summer. We're working on getting a tool to get you just an extra way of looking at students. And that's really the story we want people to be able to tell from Axiom. And I know that Stacy and Donnie can talk more on that. The story of who are the students behind the numbers, and then what can we do to start having conversations about interventions and enrichment for those students.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ed.
and
go ahead.
I'm actually really excited about this in particular. And one of the areas I want you to be thinking about as we move towards this is, right now in accountability, your students who meet or exceed progress, in A through F, they're no different. They both count as 1 point. But those that exceed progress become increasingly important in distinction, because distinctions looks at just
Stacy.
A tool like that's going to be really cool for those kinds of nuances.
Okay, sorry. I was answering a question and I thought it was you, but apparently it was me. I got a message saying my internet connection was unstable. I did want to just piggyback on what Ed was talking about with the local assessment data. Ed can certainly verify the next statement I'm about to make. I always think that creating something is easy as me just saying it. And our developer laughs at me all the time, because I think if I say it, you should be able to make it. It should just be that easy. One of the challenges with this sandbox idea is that accountability is very complex. It's not a single, bless you. It's not a single assessment. It's multiple assessments over time. And so the question was asked, can't we just have something that would take like our 4th grade benchmark and give us a projection based on that? The answer is, Axiom is built to give you a full projection using multiple assessments over multiple years, which is why the sandbox is a big deal and why it's more difficult than I might have imagined when I just asked for that as a feature request from many of you to begin with. So just know that we're working on it, and we're really trying to make it something that's useful to you. And otherwise, it would just be as simple for you guys to just go in and calculate your domain 1 yourself. So we're working on it. It's more complex than just another tool. So just, you know, I'm rambling a little bit. So go ahead, Stacy.
All right. Anything coming up in what's coming questions?
All right, Stacy, show them our new Cool, our new toy.
I am super excited about this. I've been working on it for the past few months and with Donnie's help. And so our goal was really to give you a place where, you know, sometimes you get emails of like, hey, do you have those webinars from last year? Like, I'd really like to go back and watch them. Or like, hey, what's coming up? You know, who do I contact for this? All of those kinds of questions. We wanted to put it in one place for you. So I'm going to run through a little bit of a demo of the new subscriber site. And so you have the link there. And we'll make sure to get you a long link. Actually, let me just do that right now real quick. So there's the long link for the site. Just posted into the chat for those of you that are limited by tiny URL. So when you come to the site, you'll see this welcome page, and there is a video on the welcome page that's me kind of walking you through all of the pieces. So you can be sure to watch that and see where everything is. And so you'll see updates and new features here on the welcome page. So we'll put this recording both here on the updates and new features underneath where it says launch, and then we'll also put it under the videos tab. So that's the home tab. Then we have the videos tab, and all of those manual entry videos that we were talking about that were recorded last year are housed here. And it just says summer 2018 because that's when they were recorded, but they're still very relevant to the files that you'll be putting in. So you can go there to watch those videos to help you input that manual data. Or if you go over to the support tab, the very first item under technical support is the manual entry support. And so it lists all of the steps of how to send your files to Region 10 to have us enter them for you. And then also under the videos tab, I'm going to step back for a second, but since they're connected, I want to show you that. You see here the webinars for each of the school year. So the launch webinar will be here. It'll be the first one under 2019-2020, and then as we continue through the year, we'll add those, and you can go back and watch the webinars from previous years. Also under the support tab, you'll find not only technical support, but also what sorts of training support are available to you. We have some frequently asked questions. All of these are linked table of content, so you can click and go straight down to a particular question. And we'll continue adding to this FAQ. So we'll be collecting these questions that you've been asking here in the launch webinar, or questions that come through via email. If you have other questions that come up for you, you can send those to me, and we'll make sure that we get them on our FAQ as well. And then finally, there's a contacts page with also a few key information that would be the person that you want to contact. For instance, if you have accountability questions, then you're going to want to contact me. If you have manual data entry support questions, you're going to want to contact Donnie. If you have technical issues, you want to contact one of the help desks. So that really gives you a sense of who to contact for what, and a place for all of your Axiom contacts in one location, so you don't have to like search back through your emails. Who was I supposed to contact for this, that?
And I can talk a little bit about the contact information that
Sure.
you had up there. We, especially this week and next week and throughout the rest of June, we meet regularly. That when I say we, I mean Eduphoria and Region 10. We meet regularly to triage tickets that are coming in with concerns, to see if there's anybody, if a lot of people are having concerns about the same thing, then that's something that we either need to communicate, or maybe we have something that we need to fix. So we meet very regularly to meet on those things. If you send an email to support@eduphoria.net that should have gone to Donnie, then we're pretty good about making sure that those get routed the correct way. And so the general buckets of technical support comes to us. Questions about using the information go to Region 10. Those are your general buckets. But oftentimes we have tickets where, you know, like Donnie even said at the beginning, send it to support and Donnie, and we'll make sure that the correct person sees whatever it is you're asking, so that we can help you out.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ed.
When in doubt, copy everyone.
It's a good policy. All right, so
Okay.
play around with that user site. If you have feedback on the user site, let me know. Again, this is Stacy talking. So if you have any feedback on that user site, let me know. That site's dynamic. So as soon as I update something and hit publish, it's visual for everybody. So if there's something you'd like to see added or whatever, let me know. I'll continue to manage it as we move through the year. Then upcoming training. So we've really tried to think about a year in the life of Axiom and what would be most useful. And so we don't have dates for these yet, but they'll function like they have in the past, where we'll do webinars and then we'll record them and we'll post them onto the website. And so June, July, using the projections internally. So kind of some of the pieces that Donnie was talking about. Okay, so you run your Axiom numbers. Now, what do we use these for? Who's it good to share with? Who's it good to not share with? And then what kinds of things will we think about and do based on those? July and August, identifying areas for growth. So where are our weaknesses and then moving into August, what are we going to develop some yearly goals around that? September, identifying and creating key monitor groups based on those yearly goals, because if you create 1 million monitor groups, then you can't monitor all of them, right? So getting really strategic about that. And you can see throughout, I won't read through the entire list, but you can see how we're kind of thinking about what does this look like. Again, Axiom is more than the number, right? You get the number in June, tomorrow, and then your high school and district numbers after you get your CCMR data, but what does this really look like using it beyond this summer?
Are there any questions over those training things before we move on?
Oh, and one other note about these training pieces. If you watch the webinar with me and you're like, oh man, this is really awesome, but I really want somebody to either come to my district or get some digital FaceTime with my district about how to go deeper with this, or, you know, I really liked this, but I don't feel comfortable turning it around, reach out to us. We can provide that training. That's actually under the support tab on the website, that if you want to follow up from one of these trainings, we can provide that.
Also, something that's a little different this year than previous years is Stacy and or me would generally do these webinars and you would watch live the training and then you would kind of try to go do some stuff with it on your own. We're actually going to flip those this year. So every one of these trainings that you see up here, we're going to video the training first and post it to the user site. Let you guys know that it's posted, and then on the date of, let's just say that June or July, using the projections internally training, let's say that was supposed to be on July 7th, and that may be I'm just making that date up, that may be a weekend, I don't know, but let's say that it was supposed to be July 7th. That would actually be like a live Q&A webinar. So you've already watched the training, then you're going to come and ask us questions. But I do want to reiterate what Stacy said, which is we are available to train you. We are available to train your principals. That's a question that's gotten asked to us several times. Yes, we will absolutely train you. We will absolutely train your principals. So let me read this question and respond to it really quickly. Can we get a recording of this? The answer is yes. I am recording this right now as we speak. As soon as we are done and I have a chance to edit it and convert it to YouTube, I'm going to send it out. Excuse me. It's going to go out on Eduphoria's listserv. But then also it's going to go to everybody who's a current subscriber of Axiom. My apologies if you get it twice, but I'd rather you get it twice than not at all. So it's going to go out via email in 2 servers, and then it's also going to be on our user side as well. So yes, everything we do for Axiom is always recorded, so you'll always get it. Okay, go ahead, Stacy. Sorry.
And I have been known to hit record, and then I go back and re-record it so that you have it.
Yeah, been there, done that too.
All right, so some important upcoming dates, and these are from accountability, but of course, Axiom is an accountability analytics tool. So these are important for you to be aware of as they're upcoming. So again, mid-June, we're expecting that final 2019 CCMR student listing released in teal where I showed you. Also in mid-June, we're expecting the campus comparison groups released. That's a good place to see where your official economically disadvantaged percentage, because that's listed there on your campus comparison group. So if you don't, have ready access to your PEIMS information or whatever, that's a good place where you can verify what the state has identified as your ECODIS. And then August 7th, the preliminary domain tables are released in Teal, and ratings on the 14th internally in Teal, and 15 they go live publicly.
All right, any questions before we have our last moments and wrap up? All right, so far I don't see anything in the chat. Couple of reminders. If you need help, there is live support to help you during school hours. So Monday through Friday, there should be someone answering the phone numbers that you see here. I will say Region 10 closes at noon on Fridays, but if you're working on a Friday afternoon and you need help, please email me. I unfortunately don't have much of a life, and so I rarely stop working. If you need help, I will respond to you. Yeah, Shannon, we'll do it as soon as we possibly can. But Eduphoria's response is also, Eduphoria is also available to respond. So please use the emails, use the phone numbers that you see on your screen. And again, anyone who you've heard their voice today, we're willing to support you and help you as much as we can. So please reach out to us. If there are no other questions, I'm going to open the floor to Stacy and Ed for their last thoughts before we wrap the webinar up today. Stacy, Ed, any last thoughts?
I'll say I'm just super excited about this year, and I'm hoping that we are providing the level of support that you want and need. And I'll tell you, when I was in a district, I would have given anything to have a tool like this. So it's pretty exciting to be on the support end of it.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate sort of the vigilance that we have right now this week and over the rest of this month to check in regularly so that we can stay on top of any changes that need to happen. Shannon, your comment here, your bosses are waiting on this. As soon as we can turn it on, it will be appreciated. That's same sense of urgency is behind us right now. So anything that we've been there, so we know exactly what the hovering over your shoulder is, waiting on some results. And so as soon as we can have this stuff ready for you guys, we will, and we're excited to work with y'all on this.
And the last thing I have, because I'm a shameless self-promoter, if you are going to be at TEPSA or TASSP this week, Stacy and I will be there at both locations, not at the same time, clearly, because I can't be in two places at once. But we'll have a booth in the exhibit hall. Come by and see us. And I'm also going to be presenting at TASSP at 8 a.m. on Thursday morning. I mean, I really got the prime slot for presentation there, but we'll be talking a little Axiom. If you guys want to come by and see us, Amber Jones and I will be presenting at TASSP on Thursday morning. So I hope you guys will.
Yeah, Eduphoria will be at both conferences.
Perfect. Sorry, Ed, I was going to exclude you guys.
No, you know what? You had cut out, and I thought that you were done talking. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Eduphoria will also be at both conferences.
All right. So if we don't have anything else, there's nothing else in the chat. I will, Christine. I'll come see you. So if there's nothing else from you guys, thank you guys so much for coming today. And we're going to stop recording, and I will get this up as soon as I can get it converted.